we know, there was something in the media. Giggle shared it to me, and the first thing I did was jump on to look at Will Smith's birth chart. I'm like, right, we need to understand why this is happening. And it is really linked to collective consciousness, which it's actually very upsetting when you step back from the situation. You look at it, especially when we look at human psychology, and in some of the readings I've been doing, really relating to the April energy, which I've been warning everyone about, is that we do have Aries and Chiron bouncing off in the month of April. And we did just have Virgo moon, which is, we're going to understand why this is relevant in the mix of Will Smith's energy and how it will relate to collective consciousness. So we're going to do Will Smith's birth chart. And I did think long and hard about it, because there's a lot in the media, and it's really not what my channel is about. I'm not, how do I put it? I'm not team Will, I'm a Libra. I don't look at things that way. I'm very partial. I see both sides, and it really has disappointed me, to be quite honest, especially from a media point of view. That from a collective consciousness point of view, we move through the Virgo moon. The Virgo moon is to do with higher heart chakra. It's also to do with the critique, okay? The other side of things is that the Virgo moon does usher up and conjure up some emotions, which we did have. And we're still traveling through that, moving into April. We did have, the nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius. We've had a lot of transits in retrograde. Everyone's really fatigued. Everyone's really tired. So that's a given. I think all at a collective level, we understand that. Now, funny enough, Gemini does relate to media. Sagittarius also relates to celebrities. The other aspect is we are moving into a new moon in Aries, and that is landing on the 1st of April 2022. We, moreover, have Chiron, the wounded healer, very close to it. And I did say at a collective level, it would be looking, in humanistic experiences, it will be like watching a bunch of inner childs coming out. What is an inner child? An inner child is an emotion that we hold deep within. And it's the feelings of reaching that threshold. Now, the funny thing is, Will Smith is a sun in Libra, which is going to be so understood once we get into the mix of this read. And his moon is in Scorpio. So he's got two major things going on. Number one is, with this new moon in Aries that's coming, he's got a lot of Libra placements, okay? Number two is the shadow sign of Aries is Libra. And what happens with Libra is, if you push them to a brink, they can blow up, okay? They can get to a point, and it can take a very, very long time. And Scorpio relates in much the same fashion. The eclipses are happening in the shadow sign of Scorpio. That's one thing that's going on. So his moon being in Scorpio, he's already feeling the pending eclipses that are coming, which is a rebirth, and it is to do with 1st and 7th house placement. So it's to do with you in the mix of your connection. Currently, it's relating to connections because the eclipse is in Taurus. So the shadow sign is Taurus. So in the mix, his emotional position is coming to a point where A, his connection is having a rebirth. B, is that being a sun in Libra, it is, again, this new moon in Aries is going to be, again, relating to his relationship. Now, there's going to be a full moon in Libra. So for Libras collectively, they are going through a rebirth. The sad thing is, what we do see in media, and this is one thing that just baffles me in healing, we've always got to have a perpetrator and a victim. And in reality at the time, it is so. But in reality, during a Chiron transit, we're all going to be the victim. There's always going to be two sides to the story. And especially, it's, I've been chucked some posts, I've looked over the media and seen some of these things, and we're all going to want to judge it. And it's like we need to have not a monkey mind, but a separate mind, and to look at it as a pain body experience playing out in the collective. And there were 3 people in this situation now that have been hurt. And that's the truth. 3 people have got hurt from this. which is, it's painful times. We have a lot going on in the media that's, baffling to our minds. We can't understand, after all that we've endured, what we're seeing in Ukraine, what we're seeing through the world. We empathize with the situation. Can we empathize for both sides? I think we should. I really do think we should, because we are having, at a collective consciousness level, a bunch of people going through some very painful experiences. Now, I explained to a client the other day, it was one example, and it was one example. It was like, if a person fell over and they cut their leg, and another person, from their perspective, it's visual. It's what you're seeing on the external, not what you're seeing on the internal. Another person that has maybe tripped over, cut their leg, is then judging that circumstance and saying, why are you making such a big deal about that? But could that memory have triggered a previous event that was more horrific, and maybe that person was harmed, and during that time, psychologically, that memory was, a human being came and interfered with my body, and when I fell down, I cut my knee, and therefore that traumatic event is linking back to a previous one. So what you're seeing on the 3D isn't as much as what you're seeing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think from a humanistic experience, we're all going into judgment of what something is, when something is always so much deeper. And there's 3 sides to every story. In his chart, being a Sun in Libra, there is going to be a closing and a rebirth of him personally. There also is new moon in Aries. There is a new beginning happening in his love life. Now, that can look 2 ways. That can be a makeup or a breakup. It's a rebirth. But again, Mars is amplifying wounds in his love life. Mars is amplifying wounds. It's a rebirth, but it's amplifying it. Now, the other area he has, which again is, showing a few warning signs, but, he does have a very hard chart at the moment with the aspects. Number 1, we have Aries coming up. We've got Pisces, which for all masculines collectively, there can be subjects to do with rebirth. His ascendant is in Gemini, which was linking back to the previous nodes, and his descendant is Sagittarius. And again, Jupiter was in the South Node for 18 months. They're only now having that rebirth. The moon in Virgo was relating to that ascendant as well, and his North Node's in Aries. Now, a North Node in Aries, God, that's some hard-hitting shit. I'm just going to say it. It's like, if you look at layman's terms of past life, in a past life, it would have meant, from a point of view, and sometimes we can just relate it to the past, karmically, because we're deeming things as karmic, and everything has karma, okay? Karmically. There was one post that I was sent, and it was, this person is in a karmic relationship, and therefore this is a divine masculine, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And look, for those of us that do follow twin flame path, we've got to understand, no human being cannot do dirt on you. That's a reality. It doesn't mean you're the karmic. It doesn't mean the karmic's the karmic. We are going through a karmic cycle. Things happen to all of us. That's one thing we need to get. Just because a person is in a relationship and something is playing out, it doesn't mean they're the karmic. And are we then the karmic if something like that happened to us? So we've got to contextualize things. Number 1, he has Pluto and Virgo. Pluto is births, deaths, endings, and resurrections. It's like, okay, what isn't working? What isn't working is the Virgo-related subject. So he had a placement. It was at 23 degrees. When we had the full moon in Virgo, it was bringing emotions up of what we need to let go. And we did go through the criticalness of it. We looked at the emotion, the reality, the reality of a situation, and we dissected it with inner critique. Now, Virgo are absolute perfectionists. They just are. They will look at everything in a very structured, broken down format. They will understand. They will be very strict on themselves. So from a personal point of view, inside his life, he will be very strict on making things right, okay? Also looking down to the finest minute of detail and critiquing themselves when things go to crap. The other thing is, Neptune is in Scorpio. We also have his moon in Scorpio. That axis of the eclipse is hitting both the 1st and the 7th house placement. So again, it will bring about a brand new beginning in both areas. Him personally, it's almost the old him is going. And that's a really hard aspect, I must say. I went through that, I think it was with the Cancer Capricorn nights, back prior to the Great Conjunction. And for me, what I did find through that transit was a lot of times I felt I needed to be something for somebody. And through my connections, I grew, but through my connections, I broke down too. So this is a rebirth, and it's one of those really tough, horrendous aspects to have. Even though this is going to be a partial eclipse, it's still absolute life-changing. And you add Uranus and Taurus in the mix of that transit, and for him at a very personal level, it's like we saw, unexpected, sudden shifts, changes emotionally in the background that are happening that nobody in the open eye can see. Mercury is in Libra. An action, a reaction, and a thought, a word is Mercury. It's in the house of Libra. Now, this pending Aries moon is close to Chiron, which is Chiron. His north node is in Aries, so it's a hit on his, where he's going in his life. It's pivotal points. It's changing him. It's hitting his natal chart. So what it's actually doing is, from a Mercury point of view, these things are coming to a head. These things are coming up and out, and it's bubbling. It's the wounds, Chiron, coming to the forefront in a Mercury-orientated sense. Now, we are having mid-month April, a full moon in Libra. And if we look back, potentially, we'd have to go back in media. Haven't looked. Feel free to do such. Look back between August and October 2021. There might have been something in the media that was going down between the two individuals around that time. That is because the moon cycles are going from there to here, and they're doing their full 360. There is going to be, and again, Libra is to do with injustices, like the way it's playing out at the moment. So it can be injustices playing out. Again, it's a full moon. Full moons ain't fun. Full moons, you do tend to find there's more arrests during full moons. There's more people admitted into mental asylums during that time. I worked in nursing for years, and we saw that even on the books. It was like, okay, we've got more patients coming in. So you tend to find these things. So number one, here's heavy-hitting Libra placements, which again, remember, in context, the shadow sign of Libra is Aries, which is Mars. Planet of war. He has the sun in Libra. He has Mercury in Libra. He has Venus in Libra. What other placement do we have? And they're all making a full moon aspect. The new moon aspect and Chiron is asking us to find a way relating to his connections to have a new beginning, but there's deep healing. The other thing is, where is his Mars? His Mars is in Virgo. We had a full moon in Virgo around this time for him, over from the full moon, which I believe was on the 18th of March. We were, even though it transits through other signs after, it's still embodying that energy till we reach the 1st of April 2022. So Mars being the planet of war, it was a Virgoian energy, also linked to Pluto, and it's this, it's like the lotus flag. You're digging into the murky waters, and you're already critiquing yourself. And again, Virgo is going to look at the reality, and there is something else behind the scenes here. I'm bloody telling you, there's something hidden. Jupiter also is in Virgo, so he has Mars, he has Jupiter, and he has Uranus and Virgo. So Pluto's in Virgo as well. That's a lot of Virgo. And what's the bloody shadow sign of Virgo? Pisces. So this whole month was already hell for this individual in their personal birth chart, because he was, fatigue-wise, he would have been tired. He might have been, again, feeling run down and unwell, having to do too many things. Jupiter, again, in Virgo, looking, critiquing ways of dealing with life. The other, Uranus, sudden changes that happened Well, we know one sudden change that happened, and again, Pluto. But again, it's not just related to the one day. This transit is also going to affect him natally in April. It is a rebirth for his star sign. Go and have a look at what Chiron and Aries. That's a 0 degrees. Oh wow. That's big. That's big. A lot of wounds relating to his past, and we can see what's happening in the media. Chiron, when you look at Chiron's position, being that it's in Aries, it meant in his past, and or theoretically, if we want to look at it in spiritual terms, for the woke, theoretical woke these days. And that's another thing I'm seeing. This Chiron energy playing out. How woke are we? If we can't look at things partial, how bloody woke are we? That's all I'll say. Because, lambs leading the lambs, that's not woke. Woke is being partial to a situation and seeing both sides, but looking outside the box. And also having empathy for all involved. That's being woke. Chiron and Aries in the past life is, the shadow sign of it is Libra. So past tense situations relating to his relationships, relating to his past bad doings is coming to the forefront. But it's closing a cycle. It's going to be closing a cycle for this rebirth. It's also regrets, pain, wishing you did better in your past. It's quite funny because sometimes we think in layman's terms of transparency that if we're open, we can have less scrutiny. And I have been saying this for the last few weeks. We really, especially with politicians, for instance, the one thing I was really looking at in life is, can you do your job? And I think, I think all we would ever want from a president, a prime minister, somebody in a place of power is, can you do your job? Can you do your job? Doesn't mean that we should be privy to deep privileged information. Probably not. I really don't want to know what you ate for dinner last night. And I think sometimes we do get caught up and wires can get crossed. By no means am I condoning it. By no means am I saying. I'm talking more in layman's terms of human psyche during a Chiron transit. I mean, we have just witnessed something that at a collective level, we all are going to accidentally fall into. I want to make that perfectly clear. Have a look in the mirror. This is what we are going to get in the first 8 days of April, astrologically, are crap. I can't underemphasize this. It will be like a bunch of people with a lot of pain in their hearts. I'm warning you. It's so painful to view. How do I explain it? To understand in a loving sense that Chiron, if you understand a mythology, Chiron is an asteroid, but it's related in mythology, and he ended up having a bunch of wounds that he was immortal, he was forced to live with for the rest of his life. So he was then cast out by his family and adopted by his nephew. And his nephew took him in and taught him spiritual practices to heal. That's his Chiron placement, Aries, right? Scorpio also is Chiron. It's in the South Node, collectively for all of us. What Chiron then learnt from his nephew, who took him in, was how to use meditation, spiritual practices, philosophy, to look at wounds from a different perspective. He also was hit with a poisonous arrow, which amplified his pain. And because he was immortal, he had to live with that pain. And we all can relate to that in society, that we are a bunch of people walking around with, like Florence and the Machine said, dragging that horse around. We all have that, guys, and we need to take accountability for that. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect at all times. That is impossible. It's impossible. I remember back to a time years ago, and I said this to giggle, I was like, so funny. It's especially for Libra. You have this out-of-body experience, and you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I was a very young, quiet young girl, very shy, but very strict on myself. And And I remember I was on a bus and it was with my grandfather. I was in Cyprus, I was in Europe, and I'd broken Turkish, so I can speak two languages. And I remember my grandfather had heart issues and he was on the bus. We'd gone to a wedding and we were leaving the wedding in a bus. You know, obviously what we see in the collective here is quite similar to where we could be going. It's like, okay, how are we going to get to work? So everyone would put money in together, and to go to major events, we would literally get on a bus and go. It would be paid for, and we would come back. So on this bus, my grandfather had heart ailments. He was on the bus. He was getting very stressed. People were pushing, and you know, the bus driver was saying, "Get down, get down." And I had this moment of, in your psyche, you better do something. You know, it's screaming as though you're looking at your grandfather. You're having a moment. You're in your body. You're out of your body. I got up. I pushed them down off the bus and I told them. And I was not a vocal person. I was not a vocal person. It felt like an out-of-body experience. And I said to them in Turkish, "Yanasha," which means get off the bus. Something had to be done. Aries in Chiron. You get my point? We will make mistakes in life. And unfortunately, society will never let you live that shit down. Never. We are such unforgiving human beings. Makes me sometimes, and by no means is this about Will Smith. This is about human psychology, healing. You know, the element of us being potential spiritual gurus on social media, having to take accountability for what we preach, what we say, what we teach. That's our role. Otherwise, if we can't move above it, you know, and admit to ourselves that even us are not immune to these experiences, then we're not going to grow. And this is an example fact of how, at a collective level, with these transits in Will Smith's chart, we at a humanistic level are going to experience these things from here, which we already have been. How many of us have had bread attacks this week? Be honest. How many of us have got so triggered that, you know, I've developed some techniques in my life, I can tell you. I have developed some very interesting techniques to be aware of my monkey mind, which is my feelings, my emotions, my vibration, to moderate that. But I am so not able to say that I can be perfect at all times. There's no way. Could I have a mucked up situation? I mean, even me being in media, for instance, at a reality level, unless we're moving with the pack, we're an outsider. And if we're an outsider, guess what happens? Pack mentality, Aquarius. Well, we're jumping over here. We're going to be team this. We're going to be team that. That is not, that's not being an individual mind. That's actually not being woke. That's being, oh, I might get left behind, so I'll go over here. That's not growing. That is really not growing. Is there safety in numbers? Yeah, not if they're sheep. Have your own mind. It's the same. You know, we had the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius. And the one thing that it really did show us is prejudices, racism, discrimination, thinking outside the box and actually hearing another person out. And it wasn't that these things weren't there in the first place. Each of us within our own lives had to look at, and this is why when we see subjects happening in Ukraine, we need to be partial to understand. Again, there's two sides to every story, and everyone's getting hurt. The Aquarius energy of let's go over here and punish the perpetrator, there's victims near that perpetrator. Let's just be honest. Both sides, at a collective level, are never going, you know, when I was in Cyprus, and this is one example, if you go back to, you know, history, Cyprus was a broken country. My father is European. My mother is English and Irish. I have French there too. And from very, very blessed, I was able to be taken to my father's birth country. And a lot of the history coming with fresh eyes, unknown to me, you know, nothing was ever projected to me. It was very new when I got there. visually seeing the impact of certain events, Chiron, that impacted those people, both sides of the fence, seeing photographs, hearing stories of turmoil. That doesn't go away. We then have to try and find a way that we can live. And that's a hard part. That's the backlash of these situations of, okay, something really horrendous happened to me. I was a victim. When you have certain things happen, and it can be something so trivial, it can be something really large, you then are like a host. You're living with this hurt, and you're walking around with those demons inside you emotionally. We don't know unless we've walked a mile in another person's shoes. Visually speaking to the people over there, some of the most horrific things happened to these individuals, and even for them to wake up and to, function in their day and have to face that day in, day out, waking up, remembering what happened to them. My grandmother told me a story once, and I was flashing back, and of course my father now has passed. So certain things that you have questions for, you just can't go to the horse's mouth and get it. But I remember they didn't have birth control. There was a war over there between the Greeks and the Turks. And she mentioned to me that she had to live in a cave. And, during that time, to try and fathom what we're going on at the moment, what's going on at the moment, and the fear that we have inside ourselves, Chiron and Aries, she made it happen, okay? That's what I'm going to say. She had 12 children. There was issues with food back then. There were concerns about how they were going to have shelter. They were living in the side of a rock in a cave. And they would feed the men first, because who's the strongest? The men. And they would then, she would eat last. And that was so the king, theoretically, and we're not talking about male, female, who's high, who's like, no. The person who was going out to do hunter-gatherer needed to be well enough to then look after, the children and the mother. So she would feed my grandfather first, and she would then eat after and what was left. And one chicken would go for 12 people. She would eat the head. And that was during the war in her country back then. So what we need to understand is, can people survive after that? Yes, but you are changed permanently. You really are changed permanently. You're never the same again. But you have to, and I think, what's that bowl called? And I've got to remember this, honestly. They talk about the golden bowl that is broken. And the thing is, I think if Yarn's in the house, she'll be able to tell me. I always do this. I always forget what it is. But it's kind of like an analogy of what this is. When you've got a wound, there's cracks, there's breaks. Coat the cracks and the pain, you learn and you heal and you coat them with gold. Because they're golden clarity moments. And there's something that made and shaped you, that you would never be the person you are today had they not happened. Does that make sense? So, sometimes we talk in layman's terms of, oh my gosh, this could ruin somebody, this could, and it's like, we need to be accountable for our reactions towards these things. Especially with transits and Pisces, guys, it's the 12th house, especially for males. It's linked to, at the moment in their astrology, I did tell you, for males on the planet, this was a jerk of a transit. It really has been. Number one is, they had been stuck in the South Node for 18 months prior to 2022. 18 months. That's like, can't be a bitch. Can't do shit, right? Then they moved into 2022. Shifting signs into the collective 12th house placement, which is to do with them being able to say they're having a hard time, feel that they can't do everything, have their emotions that can come up. Mars also transiting, we've got Pisces, it's 12th house. 12th house it can be where spiritual gurus come from, and again, his descendant is Sagittarius, so he had that natally going on. It's also to do with their, how would I explain it? So 12th house is the house of imprisonment, incarceration, meditation. It's the vault. It's the memories of the past, right? So from a spiritual point of view, for males, we're all tired. For females, we're all tired. You know, we had Venus in Capricorn since November the 5th. That was hard. Then, bang, we bounced into, you know, Mercury retrograde in Capricorn and Aquarius, bouncing back and forward. Same thing. We only then moved out of it and we had the new moon in Pisces, the full moon in Virgo. So we're going, where did the year go? We've started, but we haven't done anything. We've been tired. We've been going through our shadow work. Anyone got anything done this year? No. We now in April are going to have that opportunity. But both the Virgo moon and the Aries moon are both the same thing. They are heart chakra, they are healing, they are Chiron in motion. We literally, one thing that was really beautiful about the transits, that Will Smith's going through, that will form him, a new version of him in 18 months. We're a little bit into it now. Is that through the 1st and the 7th house placement, I had a breakup, I had a makeup, I had a breakup, right? I also found there was a lot of things inside my life that I believed I had to be. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of purging. There was a lot of healing. But it rebirthed me, thanks, sweet, to be the new version of me. It was one of the most painful transits for me as a human being. And I do have Scorpio on my chart. I do have, you know, I'm having a nodal reverse. So I have, since I started covering astrology, really used it as me as the guinea pig. Looked at many people's birth charts. Like, for instance, at the moment, you'll probably see Madonna in the media. Why? Because she's got Pisces in her chart. You know, she's reinventing herself, but she's very critical. I will do her birth chart at some point. It's a very interesting birth chart. Very, very interesting. But what can I say with Will Smith's? Okay, number one, there can be subjects to do with his contracts. Okay, that's it's a sucky thing, but it's a true thing. Number one, he's got Venus there, he's got Mercury there. Well, number one, it's all over the media, isn't it? Could something come to a close? Yes. You could even see all parties involved in that situation were deeply hurt. Something can be coming up towards a contract. Something is changing in his love life, full moon in Libra. But it's more inside him as a human being. Do you get what I'm saying? Because he's got the sun in Libra. So he personally is changing and transforming. What else can I say? Mars and Virgo. He may reflect upon this probably as we move into... He's going to reflect upon it anyway. But again, subjects will be re-looked over at a later date as well. And that's because Virgo links to, again, Mercury. And our next Mercury retrograde is happening as soon as we enter into May. So it's like, if you can think, we're cramming homework. We haven't really got much done this year. And we're going to move into April. And like Hitler's chooks, we're going to be running around trying to get things done. You got a little window there. What else can I say? Number one, changes. I think there could be some truths that come out. I think there could be some... And look, truths are out, but people are never at peace. Let's just be perfectly frank. Ain't no one ever happy. The other thing he has is Saturn in Aries. So, when we look at Saturn in a birth chart, it connects to what the father's energy was, and I do not know anything about Will Smith, okay? I don't go into... I grab the birth chart up. I know of him. I've watched his movies. I know of his wife on a basic level. Don't really particularly have an opinion. I'm merely looking at the chart and human psychology during these transits. Saturn in Aries is a hard one because it literally means through the situation of maybe a parent not completely being there, that person then had to... it's usually where the energy was selfish and it's like, no, you have to think of others. So that's whatever role that person took in your life. And sometimes when we look at our birth chart and we see Saturn, what it's going to do is, say your parent passed away when you were a child and they were never there. That situational ship is Saturn. Due to those circumstances, this is who you became. This is what that situation taught you to be. Which is, consider other people. That's the Aries placement, because the previous energy, especially with his North Node being in Aries, was you need to now karmically repay a debt because you were it. You were it. You're number one. You have to do it. That's your problem. Go put other people first. Anywho, any questions? I just thought I'd touch base with that. Think about it. This month, like I said, Aries is in Chiron. Look after yourselves. Try not to be hard on yourselves. Know that these things are a potential, okay? This isn't about making excuses. This is the crazy thing. We have this habit in life of having opinions behind closed doors. But if we were to have someone come into our backyard, this is what I'm saying. It's Chiron. It's not about Will Smith. It's about human psychology. If we were to show our backyards, oh my God. I don't know, man. That's all I'm saying, Perigal. We would not have a good time. Well, that's Chiron and Aries for you. This isn't about making an excuse for a person's behavior. This is about the placements and what they do. And unfortunately, the placements in this chart are all there. They're all there linking to the transit, right? And so, like I said, in astrology, you can have the best astrology, but it depends on where you psychologically are for that astrology then to play out. Do you understand what I'm saying? So at the moment, you know, in this astrology, these are some really hard-hitting placements where they're in the media. Sagittarius is also relating to celebrities. And of course, it's in Pisces, so we're seeing the psychology surrounding these things. The other chart I looked at was, who's the gentleman who was in, I've got a, 1 minute, let me look it up. There was another one I looked at the birth chart. Pause with me. Foo Fighters. His birth chart was very interesting too, and it did show, especially relating to Pisces transits, how that situation played out. So, you know, birth charts are interesting things. You can tell when your partner's going to get money. You can tell when you're going to go through a life change. You can tell, you know, wellness, money, contract issues. Yes, contract issues for Will Smith can come up. But again, it's him personally. It could be, you know, wellness coming up for that individual. It's a change. Maybe going into a different genre of work. It could be. I don't even want to think about that. We're not saying it's cool. We're saying this is a birth chart. I just want to make that perfectly clear. But also, you know, be practical. We're quite happy to type, but think about it. These are people. These are people. We don't know what is going on behind the scenes, and that's one thing we do have power over. That one. I know. Yeah, definitely. It was funny because when I did channel his energy within his birth chart, not Will Smith, the other, very sad energy. The Mercury-related dynamic is shown. I'll have to do a reading on it, and I'll show you the aspects. I'll put them up on the camera so that you can have a look. I know that when YouTube provides us with the new, you know, camera technique, which we can have split screens, potentially I can do it then. So I can actually impose the actual birth chart on the screen and do the live so we can interpret them and we can have a look. Venus and Libra, I don't know, man. But the moon in Scorpio, definitely there is going to be a change in his contracts and his relationships. You know, they say no publicity is bad publicity. I don't know. But from a human point of view, the reason I made this was because of the Chiron aspects, is to help us understand at a deeper level that we are going to react off, okay? We are going to react and have wounds that come up. We are going to maybe look at ourselves and second guess ourselves that we can't kind of fix that situation. We can't come to terms with that situation. It can be some challenging times in the first 8 days, especially because the moon is making a conjunction to Mercury in Taurus, and that's the pending eclipse. So these things in a value sense, it can be, you know, wherever it's positioned in your chart, that Taurus placement's going to be hard. And, you know, for feminines, it'll be feminines in the media. Mars, again, can be police. I've been looking gradually in the media to see some of these things I've been interpreting. I was like, oh, something to do with police. Maybe more women coming into the police force. Yes, that has happened so far. Definitely with the Pisces placements, it could be arrests due to a substance found. That will be in the media. Pets, animals can be in the media. Which Ukraine mentioned, having to eat certain species to survive. Pets in the media. There was that dog movie that was on there. That's another one, and it came out. It was on Netflix. It was it? I forgot the name of it. That was another thing, and it is a real animal that was rescued from a shelter. Pisces transits relating to pets. Again, Aries it's the metal industry. It can be to do with cars. It can be to do with fires. It can be to do with military. Taurus can relate to the transits relating to your electricity prices going up. And it's a partial eclipse, so it should be better than negative. But we're going to see themes to these things coming up. So I'm hoping this has helped. By no means am I siding, am I condoning, am I saying left, right, left, right. I'm looking at it from a perspective point of view of A, the transits that are here, and B, potentially why some of these things played out. They were linked inside his chart. Take care.